The foundation of a medieval university was not a complete educational process. These institutions developed within the influences of religion and politics, shaping their structure, purpose, and authority. Universities like Paris, Bologna, and Prague did not emerge for a totally educational purpose. They were created and supported by papal decrees, imperial privileges, and royal charters. The medieval universities were institutions shaped simultaneously by religious authority and political power. Both legitimized, structured, and limited the development of academic life. So, investigating the establishment of medieval universities requires an examination of the religious foundations that justified their existence. Also, the political forces that define their autonomy and function. Religious values and institutions profoundly shaped the emergence of the medieval university. The church was not just the patron of learning, it became a central authority defining what knowledge meant, how it was taught, and who could access it. University grew within a Christian framework that established their purpose and limits from the start, binding education to a spiritual mission and ecclesiastical oversight. This influence is evident in the papal involvement in early universities. In 1231, Pope Gregory IX issued the bull Parens Scientiarum to formally recognize and regulate the University of Paris. Gregory IX described the university as a group of men bound together by the unity of purpose and the bond of knowledge, who should be nourished by one food, under one rule, and with one spirit. By framing the university as a community of scholars united in spirit and purpose, the Pope cast it as an almost monastic society of learning. This papal decree affirmed the university's religious role and provided a model for its governance under church protection. It also showed that universities, even as they gained academic autonomy, were not fully independent of church authority. They needed definition and support from above the tree. Furthermore, the church's influence went beyond charters and laws to shape the internal structure of medieval universities. Theology, the study of divine truth, stood at the pinnacle of the medieval curriculum, reflecting the university's religious mission. As Monica Astalos explains, the theology faculty took a central role in the university and served as a guardian of Christian orthodoxy, ensuring that teaching remained within the bounds of church doctrine. Professors of theology could veto teaching deemed heretical and guide the intellectual direction of the institution. By keeping theology supreme, the church guaranteed that higher learning reinforced Christian orthodoxy and moral discipline. This clerical presence lent stability and legitimacy to universities, but it also meant that certain ideas were off limits within the academic setting. Crucially, the church influenced not only the establishment and structure of universities, but also the boundaries of intellectual life. Historian John Wilinski points out that the church actively encouraged learning by safeguarding ancient works and founding universities, but at the same time it set limits on access to knowledge and enforced the strict hierarchies of authority in scholarship. Certain books and ideas were restricted or condemned by ecclesiastical authorities. University statutes and church mandates defined which texts could be taught. Academic freedom, in modern terms, was constrained. Learning took place within a carefully managed ideological framework sanctioned by the church. Yet this framework also allowed learning to prosper within orthodoxy. To sum up, the religious influence of medieval universities was both foundational and directive. From the earliest days, these institutions were shaped by the church not only in structure but also in purpose. Papal decrees and theological oversight gave universities legitimacy while embedding them within a framework of Christian orthodoxy. Theology faculties held dominant authority, guiding academic life and restricting unproved ideas. Beyond internal structures, the church also controlled access to knowledge more broadly, preserving classical texts but regulating which ideas could be taught and how. In this way, the church empowered medieval universities to flourish, but always within boundaries it defined.
While religion gave medieval universities their spiritual foundation, political power was equally important in shaping how these institutions functioned, grew, and served society. From the start, universities were closely linked to kings, emperors, and city-states. These rulers saw them not just as centers of learning, but as tools to train loyal administrators and reinforce their authority. A clear example is the Charter of Charles University in Prague, issued by Charles IV in 1348. He called the university a fountain and source of knowledge meant to enlighten the kingdom. This poetic phrase also showed a political aim, to make the university a symbol of Czech's independence and pride, rather than relying on foreign centers like Paris or Bologna. By creating a local university, the kingdom could develop its own educated elite loyal to the crown. Politics also protected scholars. In 1155, Emperor Frederick Barbarossa issued the Authentic Habitat, giving legal protections to traveling students. This wasn't just a kindness, it helped the emperor show support for learning and increased his influence. Frederick granted students special rights and made sure they were judged by imperial or church courts, centralizing control and linking learning with political power. Historian Paolo Nardi explains that over time, universities became more administrative. They offered legal and bureaucratic training to prepare civil servants. Universities became feeders for the state, supplying trained professionals for government service. This practical role made universities vital to governance, depending on rulers' support. John Belinsky highlights politics' influence on university culture. Universities had strict rules and strong leaders, reflecting political hierarchies. Professors and students lived in a system of privilege where advancements often required political or noble connections. Even inside the university, political influence was constant. In short, political power was central to medieval universities' development. Rulers used them to boost national pride, train loyal officials, and show cultural strength. While universities gained resources and status, they also inherited political limits, hierarchies, control, and a preference for conformity. Like religion, politics helped create medieval universities but also shaped what they could become. To sum up, medieval university was deeply connected to the systems of power that surrounded them. The church provided legitimacy and intellectual authority, while monarchs and emperors granted protection and privileges. At the same time, universities served the interests of those same powers, training future clergy, bureaucrats, and loyal servants. The church helped preserve classical knowledge and moral discipline, but also restricted the limits of academic freedom. Political rulers supported universities yet used them to reinforce their influence. In the end, medieval universities were never fully independent, and they reflected the religious and political structures that made their existence possible.